The marketplace of Veltraxis was loud, dusty, and full of strange smells. Ships flew overhead, merchants shouted in many languages, and travelers from across the galaxy walked between stalls. Among them was Scifi, a thin alien mother from the Valari race. Her skin was soft and pale, her large eyes tired. She held the hand of her small daughter, Taya, who looked even weaker than she did. Scifi had tried everything. She begged for food. She offered old clothes. She even tried to sell the few books her people still kept. But no one cared about a Valari refugee. Her species had once been wise and peaceful, but after the war with the Krell Empire, they had nothing left. Most of them were scattered, hungry, and forgotten. Now she stood before a trading post. Above the entrance, a sign read, "Labor contracts bought and sold." Her hands shook as she gently pushed her daughter's shoulder. "Taya, wait here. Mama will be back soon." Taya looked up, frightened. "But Mama..." "Trust me, little star. Just wait." Inside, Scifi met the trader. He was a large, scaled being with 4 arms and a cold voice. "What are you offering?" "Myself," she said quietly. "For work. No matter the job. Just give enough food and medicine for my daughter." The trader smirked. Not much call for Valari anymore, but maybe someone will buy. Soon others entered the room. A few aliens placed low bids, barely enough to buy stale bread. Some laughed. One said he needed a cleaner for a mining station. But then a human stepped forward. He wore a long dark coat and a badge with the letters UN. His eyes were calm but serious. His name was Commander Eli Grant, a diplomat known in some circles, ignored in others. "I'll offer a different price," Eli said. The room went quiet. "I'll give food and medicine. Enough for her child to live. I'll offer safety for the girl and fair work for the mother. And I don't want a servant, I want a partner." The trader raised an eyebrow. "Are you serious, human?" Eli stepped closer. "Write the contract, but make it clear she works only if she agrees. No chains, no lies." Scifi stared at him, confused. "Why?" she whispered. He met her eyes. "Because no one should have to sell themselves to save their child." Tears filled Scifi's eyes. She tried to speak, but her voice broke. Outside, Taya waited, looking at the sky. She didn't know yet, but everything was about to change. That day, in a dirty market full of broken dreams, a human didn't choose power. He chose kindness, and the universe began to notice. The UNV Dauntless was not a warship. It didn't carry weapons or soldiers. It carried hope, medical supplies, food, translators, and peacekeepers. Commander Eli Grant had led many missions, but this one felt different. Scifi sat quietly in her new quarters on the Dauntless. The room was small but clean and warm. It had a soft bed, lights that didn't flicker, and a tiny window where stars blinked in silence. She had never stayed in a place like this. Her people usually slept in tents, cold shelters, or under broken roofs. She kept checking the small screen on the wall that showed her daughter's room. Taya was lying in a proper medical bed, surrounded by machines and cared for by kind human doctors. For the first time in months, her breathing was calm. There was a soft knock on the door. Eli stepped in, holding a tablet. "You're not a prisoner," he said gently. "You can leave this room anytime. You can leave the ship if you want. But if you stay, I have something better to offer." Scifi stood slowly. "You gave my daughter medicine and food. What more do you want from me?" Eli handed her the tablet. "I read your file. You were a teacher before the war. You speak 7 languages. We could use your help. Translating alien dialects, advising on Valari culture. You'd be part of the crew. Paid, respected, not owned." She looked at him, confused. "Why would you trust me?" He smiled. "Because I've seen what trust can build." She held the tablet in her hands. The contract was short. No tricks, no hidden words. She could end it any time. Her eyes filled with tears again. "May I see my daughter?" Eli nodded. "Of course." Together they walked down the bright hallway. Crew members passed by, nodding politely. No one stared at her with fear or hate. No one whispered behind her back. In the medical bay, Taya sat up when she saw her mother. "Mama," she cried. Sailari ran to her, hugging her close. Taya's cheeks were no longer pale. She had eaten warm soup. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. A nurse smiled. "She'll be okay. A few more treatments and she'll be stronger than ever." Eli waited at the door, giving them space. That night, Sailari sat by Taya's bed, holding her hand. She looked out the window at the stars. The universe was still big, dangerous, and full of pain. But maybe, just maybe, there was a place in it for her and her daughter, and it had started with a human who didn't ask for service but offered a second chance. Days passed on the UNV Dauntless, and life began to feel calm, for the first time in a long time, for Sailari and her daughter Taya. Taya laughed again. She spent time in the kitchen with Cook Manuel, a friendly human who taught her how to make earth snacks. She especially loved sweet bread called banana muffins. The crew watched in surprise as the shy alien girl slowly grew stronger and more cheerful. They called her Little Star. Meanwhile, Sailari worked in the ship's language center. She helped translate messages from refugees and traders across the galaxy. Her mind was sharp and her voice calm. She had once taught hundreds of young Valari before the war. Now she used that same skill to help the crew communicate with different species. But even as her days grew better, her nights were filled with memories. She often dreamed of fire falling from the sky. The Krell warships had rained destruction on her world. In her dreams, she saw her mate, Jalev, holding Taya as buildings collapsed. He had told her to run, to save their daughter. She had never seen him again. One evening, Eli found Sailari, sitting alone in the ship's garden room. It was a quiet place with soft lights and growing plants from many worlds. "You've helped us a lot," Eli said, sitting beside her. "How are you feeling?" "I do what I can," she replied softly, "but sometimes I still feel broken." "You're not," he said. "You're healing. That takes time." Sailari looked at a small flower blooming in the corner. It was a Valari flower, rare, silver blue, almost glowing. "This flower used to grow all over our villages," she whispered. "Children would run through the fields. Now it only grows in memory." Eli was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Memories are strong, but they don't have to hold you in the past." Sailari turned to him. "Why are humans like this?" "Like what?" "Kind, curious, strange. You fight, but you also heal. You build weapons, but also homes. You help strangers like me." Eli smiled. "I guess we believe every life has a chance to be better, even in a broken galaxy." That night, Sailari sang an old Valari song to Taya. It was a lullaby, soft and slow. The walls of the ship picked up the sound, and soon it played quietly through the halls. Crew members stopped to listen. Some smiled. Some had tears in their eyes, even if they didn't understand the words. In that moment, Sailari's voice reminded them of something beautiful, something lost, but not forgotten. A culture once shattered was slowly being rebuilt, not with armies, but with kindness, song, and a little girl's laughter. And the stars, outside the window, kept shining. The UNV Dauntless floated quietly in space, orbiting a neutral station near the planet Relin 3. It was here that Commander Eli Grant was called to face the Galactic Concord Council, a group of powerful leaders from many different alien worlds. The council had one goal: to keep order in the galaxy, but not everyone agreed on what order truly meant. Eli stood tall in the council chamber, a large round room filled with bright lights and floating platforms. The council members sat high above, looking down at him like judges in an ancient court. Their faces were serious, some curious, others cold. One tall, sharp-voiced alien spoke first. "Commander Grant, why did you interfere with trade laws? On Veltraxis, you took a Valari refugee, one who agreed to a contract, and changed the terms." Another member with silver eyes added, You are making humans look too bold. You give food, medicine, and safety to a species many consider unproductive. Eli didn't raise his voice. I didn't break any law. I followed a deeper rule, compassion. Murmurs moved through the chamber. Some members leaned forward, interested. Others frowned. She was not a criminal, Eli continued. She was a mother, and she offered her life to save her child. I gave her a choice. Isn't that what we claim to support? Freedom? But the council did not answer. Instead, they called someone else to speak. Sayalari. She entered slowly, wearing a simple blue dress given to her by the dauntless crew. Her large eyes scanned the crowd, but she did not shake. She stood next to Eli, calm and quiet. One council member asked her, "Do you feel that this human owns you now?" "No," she replied firmly. "He does not own me. He gave me something more powerful than chains or money. He gave me dignity." Another asked, "And what have you done in return?" Sayalari answered, "I work with his crew. I translate, I teach, I help where I can. I earn my place not through fear but through respect." The room grew quiet. A moment passed. Then she added softly, "My people have suffered. We are scattered and broken, but we are not useless. We are not forgotten. Not anymore." There was silence. Then surprisingly, a few council members clapped, slowly but with meaning. The silver-eyed alien leaned back and said, "Perhaps. It is time we look again at who we call weak." Eli and Sayalari left the chamber together. Outside, the stars still shone. Back on the Dauntless, Taya ran to hug her mother. Sayalari smiled for the first time that day, not because the council agreed, but because she had found her voice and used it. And for the first time in a long time, she felt seen, not as a refugee, not as a servant, but as a person. Life on the UNV Dauntless slowly returned to normal after the council meeting. But for Sayalari, something had changed. She was no longer just surviving. She was beginning to live again. Her days were full. In the mornings, she helped the language team translate messages from refugee ships. In the afternoons, she assisted in cultural briefings for new missions. The crew respected her. They listened when she spoke. They even asked her for advice. But what meant the most to Sayalari was seeing Taya smile every day. Taya had made new friends, children of other crew members. She drew pictures of stars, spaceships, and flowers from her home world. Once shy and silent, she now talked to everyone in her soft voice, asking questions and laughing often. One evening, the Dauntless arrived near a damaged refugee ship floating in space. The ship had lost power, and dozens of families were trapped inside. Commander Eli Grant called for help from all available crew. "We need translators, medics, and calm voices," he said. Sayalari stood up. "I'll go," she offered without hesitation. Eli looked at her. "Are you sure? It might be dangerous." She nodded. "I know what it's like to wait in the dark, hoping someone will come." They boarded a shuttle and flew to the refugee ship. Inside, it was cold and dim. Children cried, elders coughed, and the air smelled of fear and hunger. But when the refugees saw Sayalari, an alien like them, not in chains, but in uniform, standing with humans, they paused. She spoke gently, in her native tongue. "We're here to help. You are not forgotten." She moved through the crowd, calming them, helping carry supplies and guiding the weak to safety. Her voice, once quiet, now carried strength. People listened. Eli watched her work with pride. Later, back on the Dauntless, Sayalari sat in the small garden room with Eli. The soft lights glowed around them and distant stars blinked outside the window. "You were amazing today," Eli said. "I just remembered what it felt like to wait for hope," she replied. He smiled. "You're more than just part of the crew now, Sayalari. You're part of the heart of this ship." She looked down, shy but grateful. "For the first time in so long, I feel like I belong somewhere." He nodded. "You do. Here, with us." Suddenly, the door opened and Taya ran in, holding a small flower she had drawn on paper. For you, Mama, she said proudly. Scifi took the picture, her eyes soft. Thank you, my little star. As the Dauntless continued through the stars, carrying hope and healing to distant corners of the galaxy, one thing became clear. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could light the darkest skies. And for Scifi and Taya, the journey was no longer about running from the past, but building a future. The UNV Dauntless continued its journey through deep space, helping where it could, bringing supplies and rescuing those in need. The crew had become a family, and Scifi felt safe, for the first time in years. But peace never lasts forever. One quiet night. The ship received a distress signal. It was weak and broken, coming from a planet called Nareth 5, a mining colony abandoned during the war. Commander Eli Grant listened carefully to the signal. A voice whispered through the static. Help! Survivors. Attacked. Eli called a meeting. It could be a trap. The Krell are still active in this part of space. Scifi was there too. Her eyes narrowed when she heard the word Krell, the same species that had destroyed her world. Her hands tightened into fists, but her voice stayed calm. We can't ignore it, she said. If there are survivors, we must help them. Eli looked at her. You'd go, even knowing the danger? I've already lived through worse, she replied. I won't hide while others suffer. The Dauntless changed course and landed on the surface of Nareth 5. The sky was gray and old mining buildings stood silent and broken. The wind was cold, and the air carried a strange, metallic smell. Scifi joined the landing team. She wore a light armor suit, just like the others, and carried a translator device. She wasn't a soldier, but her courage was clear. Inside the main building, the team found frightened miners and their families. Most of them were sick and weak, hiding in the dark. They spoke a rare language that even the ship's AI struggled to understand. But Scifi stepped forward and began speaking calmly. Slowly, the frightened people responded. Her voice brought them peace. We're here to help, she said. You're not alone anymore. Just as they began moving the survivors to safety, a loud sound echoed outside. Ships were landing. Krell, ships. Panic rose in the air. The enemy had returned. Eli ordered the crew to defend, but they were outnumbered. The Krell soldiers marched forward, cold and silent. They had no fear. They only obeyed. Scifi stood beside Eli, heart pounding. She remembered the fire. She remembered running with baby Taya in her arms, but now she stood still. She would not run this time. Suddenly, one of the Krell soldiers paused. Its scanner beeped. It turned its head toward Scifi, and then stopped. What's going on? Eli asked, watching closely. Scifi's voice was quiet. I think they recognize me. The Krell soldier stepped back. The others stopped moving. Then something strange happened. They retreated. No fight, no words. Just silence and withdrawal. Back on the Dauntless, everyone asked the same question, why? But Scifi didn't have the answer yet. Only one thing was clear. There was more to her past than anyone knew. And whatever it was, it had just changed everything. The Krell ships had left as suddenly as they came. No battle, no words. Just silence. The crew of the UNV Dauntless was safe, but confused. Back on the ship, Commander Eli Grant met with Scifi in the observation room. Stars sparkled outside, the wide window, but both of them were deep in thought. They saw you, Eli said quietly. And they left. Why? Scifi shook her head slowly. I don't know, but I think it's time to remember everything. She returned to her quarters and opened an old memory disk she had kept hidden since the day she escaped her home planet. The disk showed images of her world before the war, peaceful cities, singing rivers, and her people living in harmony. But then the image changed. There was a gathering of Velari leaders. In the center of the room stood a tall male, a proud warrior. Beside him, holding a child, stood Scifi. Eli watched from behind her. Is that you? Yes, she said softly. And the man is Shalev, my mate. He was not just a fighter, he was a leader, a protector of our world. And I was part of the council. I helped lead our people. You were a leader? Eli asked, surprised. I never told anyone, she said. After we lost our world, I thought my title meant nothing. I became just another refugee, another survivor. Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. It still means something. She nodded. I think the Krell remembered me. During the early war, I helped negotiate a short peace. They might still have my image in their records. Maybe they see me as a voice of power. Or danger. That's why they left, Eli said. They weren't sure what you would do. Silari stood quietly for a moment. Then she looked up, her voice strong. I don't want to be silent anymore. My people are scattered. Some are still hiding. Some are enslaved. If the Krell remember my name, then maybe I can speak again. Not just for myself, but for all of us. Eli nodded. You won't be alone. We'll help you. Weeks later, the Dauntless traveled to a neutral space station where many alien races gathered. Silari stood before a large crowd, Valari survivors, council members, and even human leaders. Her daughter Taya sat in the front row, proud and smiling. Silari raised her voice. I was once sold to feed my child. I was once silent, afraid, forgotten, but not anymore. I am Valari. I am a mother. I am a leader, and I stand not in chains but in hope. The crowd rose in applause. For the first time in many years, the Valari felt seen, heard, and strong. And beside her, Eli smiled, not because he had saved her, but because he had given her the space to rise. Together, they looked to the stars, not as victims, but as builders of a new tomorrow.